Hi lads and lasses, Neil here, how you doing? Today I'm going to take you through the 6 steps you have to take to identify and manage life-threatening conditions in the first aid world. See you in a bit. Right, so last time I showed you how to manage a first aid incident when it happened in front of you, and I also spoke about the stuff you had to do post-incident. This time I'm going to show you what you need to do to identify and manage life-threatening conditions in your casualties. To be effective in first aid, we have to follow the following 6 steps in order. In the first aid world, we call these 6 steps the primary survey. Primary, first, survey, look. So it's the first look that we do for absolutely every single casualty we deal with. Could be a minor incident in home, maybe somebody's cut their finger or they're preparing veggies for dinner, and it can actually help us in bigger, badder incidents out in the world. Maybe, for example, a multiple car pile-up. It will also help us identify who needs the most help first. As always in first aid, safety is paramount, so the first thing we have to do is look for danger. Danger to yourself, danger to the casualty, and danger to anyone else who's around. If it's too big and scary to go in, don't. Step back, move to safety, call the relevant emergency services. If it is safe to go into the scene, we're going to walk up to the casualty, and as we're walking in, what we have to do is check to see how they're responding to us. We call it the response check. So after years of first aiding, you kind of develop a sort of script, if you will, as you're walking up to the casualty. So things that I'll always do. I'll always say hello, it's polite, isn't it? I'll always introduce myself, so I'm Neil, and I'll tell them what I do. I'm a first aider. Now, if you're not first aid qualified, you could just ask, are you alright, or something like that. If they answer you, that's good news. It tells us the casualty's alert, and that means that we can get lots of information from them. So how they've done it, where they've hurt themselves, how they're feeling. Sometimes when a casualty answers you, it doesn't make a lot of sense. They might be shaken up by the incident, or they could have hit their head. So what we say about these guys, they're not alert, we just say they're confused instead. The next level down from this is if someone's looking at you, they might still answer your questions, but they're not very chatty. They might just say simple yes or no answers. They might even just nod or shake their head. Sometimes the casualty is in their own personal world of hurt. I don't know if you've been there where you completely shut down due to pain. Things like stubbing your toe, standing on the kid's Lego, that gets me quite a bit, or banging your elbow. Sometimes because of the level of pain the casualty is in, they do not know you're there. You might have to make physical contact with them, just place a hand on the shoulder or something, just to let them know you're there, and hopefully they'll then start to interact with you. Although I have dealt with casualties who are in so much pain the world stopped. Yeah, it's them, the pain, and nothing else. This makes identifying what's wrong with the casualty a little bit more problematic. Although what I have found is that when people hurt themselves, they do something called shielding, or they'll support the area that they've hurt. You know, when you bang your elbow, you're sort of holding it. Yeah, that's a clue for me that you have hurt your elbow. Not rocket science, this stuff. If a casualty isn't responding to you or to the pain, they may be floppy and lying flat on the floor. We call these casualties unresponsive. Now, unresponsive could mean they're still alive but passed out, or the bad side where they're not alive, and we've got a lot of work to do then if that's the case. Right, so my approach to first aid is you shouldn't have to go it alone. For minor injuries, bumps and scrapes, you may have to call out for someone to go get a first aid kit. For something more serious, you might have bystanders around who have phones. You could get them to start calling the emergency services for you. Certainly, if the casualty is unresponsive and not breathing, we're going to have to get the emergency services there as soon as possible. If no one's around, sometimes a big old shout for help might be what you need to do. Make people aware that something's gone on. They might be around the corner or in a room next door. Big shout for help can get people rushing to you. So that's the first 3 stages of the primary survey. Danger check, response check, alert, confused, voice, pain, unresponsive, shout for help. Those 3 stages are easily remembered by using the first letter of each word. D for danger, R for response, S for shout for help, or doctors, them. After we got those 3 stages done, the next 3 things are to check for the big, major, life-threatening conditions. The things that will kill people quicker than quick, deader than dead. So here's a question for you. Do I need air to live? I'd like to think you said yes at that point, because if I can't get air into my body, I am going to die. That's a fact. So the first thing we have to do when looking for life-threatening conditions is check the way that the air gets in. Now we call this the airway. In here, down to the lungs. Now what kind of things can block off an airway? Well, there's all sorts of things. Food, for example, major swelling in the throat, wet stuff, so blood, vomit, saliva, those kind of things. So if we were doing our primary survey on the casualty and we were doing the response check, just to go back a couple of stages, if they answer you, you can work on the assumption the airway is clear, can't you? Very, very simple check. However, if they're unresponsive and floppy on the floor, we do have a problem, because when they're unresponsive and flat on the back, they can't keep their own airway open. So after we've checked the airway and we have found it clear, what we'll need to do is make sure that the air is going in and out, and that process is known as breathing, isn't it? So are they breathing, yes or no? That's the first question we're doing. Certainly if they're talking to you, yeah, they're breathing. If they're unresponsive, this is where, once again, where things become tricky. We're going to have to physically check to see that they're breathing. So the way that we do the breathing check is by maintaining an open airway. I'll show you some VT to show you how to do that. And check for breathing for a full 10 seconds. So initially, as I say, we're looking for the are they breathing yes, are they breathing no side of things, but we're also looking at how people are breathing. If it's too slow, really, really slow, or there's some strange noises accompanied with the breathing, that may be the reason why we have to start CPR. Once I've done that are they breathing yes or no check, I also think about how are they breathing. There are all sorts of breathing conditions out there. Most common one is asthma. But I will say most people that have hurt themselves will be breathing a little bit too fast for their own good. So we will have to look at calming the casualty down and managing their breathing, just by being kind and reassuring generally. After the breathing check, if they are breathing normally or we can manage it and calm them down, the next thing we're going to do is check for a major loss of circulatory fluid. It's called the circulation check, but what that basically means is, are they losing lots of blood? If you lose lots of blood, as in you've sprung a leak and there's lots of blood coming out, what's happening inside is that you're losing blood pressure. Now, a loss of blood pressure means that the heart will struggle to push blood and nutrients around the body effectively. So things like the brain and all the other vital organs won't get the right level of oxygen or nutrients. That means that the body's going to shut down and they can die. It isn't just bleeding though, it could be major burns or even big bone injuries as well. Other things that will cause this hypovolemic shock or this sudden drop in blood pressure could be things like anaphylaxis, spinal injuries, being unwell, you know, where you've got a tummy upset and you're firing from both ends kind of thing. Or even simple dehydration can do it as well. So that's a primary survey, the 6 things you have to do in order to identify and manage life-threatening conditions in casualties. Danger, response, shout for help, airway, breathing, circulation. Thank you for flying Air, Neil Stewart. If you've enjoyed the film today, don't forget to smash like. If you want to see more of my work, hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so that you're kept up to date whenever I post. If you do have any feedback for me, any comments, anything you'd like to see more of, please put something down in the comments below. Next time I'll be talking about the secondary survey. So see you then. Bye for now.